Anyway, listen, let's welcome our next guest. In fact, our last guest, I think, tonight. Sunil Sharma, welcome. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. The CEO of Global Conservative Coalition. I have to say that I'm not really very happy with the last Conservative government because they didn't do very much, did they?
Well, I think a really big frustration is it wasn't very conservative. I think there's a few things you can say conservative about the previous Conservative government. And worryingly, it seems as if things have just got worse with the new...
Within 4 weeks?
I mean, I think to cause that much chaos in 4 weeks, even me, would have been saying how bad a Labour government would it be. I don't think it would cause this much havoc in this short space of time.
Why? I mean, there are a few issues that have happened. Quite a lot of issues happened from Islamist extremists. And we've had quite a few attacks, quite a few killings, rapings, various other things, to which a lot of people now get very upset because there's not been the publicity in many cases that there is now. Now, I don't condone, and I'm sure we don't condone the thugs, the violent nastiness that blew up over the past, but it was a bit like a kettle boiling.
100%. I think the stabbings that was never the root cause. I think it was a catalyst. I don't think, that was necessarily the cause. I know there was obviously misinformation spread about it, but I think to focus on that and to make that the topic of conversation, I think if that's what Sir Keir Starmer and this current government do, they're beyond deluded. There has been a boiling kettle that's gone on for a long time. We've ignored it. The Conservative government ignored it, and it's gone on for a very long time, which is the impact of mass migration and the lack of integration from certain...
They're not deluded, though. They're in denial. They know what's going on.
100%. And I think they're too scared to actually act on it. And I think that's when it becomes really worrying, when you see authorities and institutions failing to act on it or knowing it's happening.
And clamping down on the wrong people who are giving them the wrong narrative.
It's scary because, I think until the silent majority stops being silent, I think that's when we'll start to see a change. Unfortunately, what's happened in last week is what they're going to focus on is that minority of thuggery and those people, and they should be condemned.
Yeah.
But the point is, there is a lot of frustration and anger that cannot be ignored. And I think
they've shut that down using this right-wing Trojan horse.
Yeah, hang on.
Definitely.
Sunil, how do you feel though? As a person, I don't know if you're a Muslim or not, or whether you have a
Hindu, so
Hindu,
British Indian. Yeah.
You see, exactly, because I mean, I'm not a Christian. I'm nothing. I don't have a religion.
He was baptised, just as a caveat.
Okay.
I was 5 months.
Circumcised.
5 months
Covers
old.
all bases.
That was appalling. But you can follow your culture from I presume you've been here a long, long time.
Born here.
Yeah.
Well,
and so you're
Muslims,
British.
Every
I think that both my parents weren't born here. They were born in India, and I was born here. But I think it's tough to generalise and stereotype. But when I was born into this country, my parents would say to me, "You're British first. It's your job to get a good job, to get educated, and provide." Do something for this country, and you have to serve, and this is your country. You have Indian heritage, and you are also Hindu, but you are British, right? You have a duty to, do something in this country, and this is yours.
And people wanted to be British.
Sorry, hang on a minute.
Yeah,
but do you think are we indigenous? I don't know what you call us. The white. Well, yeah, but
400 years.
I'm just what is that? Ham?
I think you're a part Viking.
But did Gammon?
Yeah.
Oh, is it? What did I say? Anyway, okay. Did we, as a nation, help people to assimilate, to actually come in? I don't think we did enough, and we should have done more.
I think if you go back to the 70s and 80s, I think, for sure, I think there was probably wider racism, all this stuff, 100%. I think to argue that now is nonsense. You look at all stats, and it shows this right now. So we'll take my, being British Indian, the percentage of people in the most senior jobs are British Indian. The people least likely to go to jail are British Indian. But that will never be shown on the news. That will never be shown.
And also, white working class families, many of them have mixed race family now.
But people, I think, people are a lot more socially aware of the difference between a Hindu, a Sikh, and a Muslim. 30, 40 years ago, probably not the case, but it's changed. And I think now, to carry on that narrative 30, 40 years ago, which I think, they could have done a better job then, but to bring it up now, I think makes no sense. I think it's a victimhood culture, and I think now what's worrying is you're seeing a lot of white people pander to this, which is if you can prove you are a race of people, or a group of people that have suffered the most throughout history as a victim, then you get a leg up, you get leniency towards the law, and you get a leg up with it in your career. And I think that is not why so many people came to this country in the first place. They came here because the beauty of democracy, the beauty of merit. You come here, it doesn't matter what your skin colour is, you're good at your job, you get promoted. You're bad at your job, you lose your job. I think we're moving away from that now, and I think that's really, really dangerous. And I'd go as far as saying it's degrading to people who want to be successful and get a job on merit.
I mean, I totally agree with what you're saying. I don't think I wouldn't have been able to put it better as a white person, but coming from you, and this whole thing about being white, brown, black or anything is totally immaterial. The problem I have is at the moment we are not doing anything to deter people illegally coming into this country. We're saying, oh, very sorry, you know, come over here. I mean, and they're coming here from, I don't know, Albania and Syria and various other places, but they're all young men. And they're coming here.
Well, why wouldn't you? It's an adventure like the Grand Tour they did in the... You would do it, wouldn't you? If it's all free, you get a hotel, what's not to like? It's not their fault, it's how they're running the country.
But I think, you know, the thing is, illegal immigration is bad for legal immigrants. It's terrible because the whole concept of, you know, people come to this country to be part of UK culture, to become part of the fact the open democracy, that sort of merit. And when you see that being diminished, you know, I say it's often, and it's like we want to... You hear every day what's bad about Britain, but nothing that's ever good. All you ever hear is about the British Empire and all its impacts and how bad it was, and we should apologise for it 24/7. Look, in 2024 standards, the British Empire, we know, did some wrong things, but you should compare it versus other empires. So if we compare it versus empire, we abolished slavery, we brought democracy around the world. You know,
medical advancement, industrial revolution.
We did all this. So
rule of law.
Do it against other empires, but I just can't understand now in 2024 where there is this new obsessive need to constantly talk down Britain, and it's coming from predominantly white people who just have this sort of guilt that needs to...
Who used to represent the working class, the Labour Party. That was their party.
But it's not just...
Now they're the enemy,
it's not just the Labour Party. The fact that the Conservative Party, when they were in government for a number of years, and when we went through Brexit, we never did Brexit properly. We should do, because, you know, the problem of Europe, and I call it the European dictatorship, not the European Union, is that they would like to throw everything they can at us just for the fact we tried to, and we should leave properly. Because they'll still do business with us. And we should, in some way, protect our border along the south coast where most people are coming. The French will be furious. If we had naval boats patrolling and maybe the odd thing that flies around in the air.
A drone.
That's a drone, yeah. You get old, you forget names. That is the thing that seems to wind most people up.
Well, it's a two-tier system. You can just come on a boat. You don't have to fill in any forms or pay any money. But if you marry someone abroad, to bring them in, and you're already married, you have to fill in forms, pay a few £1,000, and you still might not get in. Well, so that's two-tier system.
I mean, I think two-tier across media, two-tier across authorities, it's everywhere.
Police.
Like, you know, it's so concerning because, you know, we see what happened with the riots, we saw the coverage it got, we saw literally nothing that happened 3 weeks ago in Leeds, very little coverage that happened there, we saw little coverage what happened in Birmingham, we saw little coverage that the anti-fascist protest where 10 people got arrested in Croydon, where we saw the anti-Semitism towards Jews and some of these marches.
Airport, nothing's happened.
But this gets little to no coverage, and all this is doing, in my opinion, just spewing more and more anger and frustration amongst this country.
And the attack against the lady from Sky News, which was shown, and they didn't make as much of that as I thought they might.
She didn't say who they were.
Well, they deleted the video off Twitter. They deleted the video of the window being smashed, the tyres being
And BBC News shut down that policeman who obviously had masses of experience and was trying to... And she go, we're not... We basically said we can't talk about that. It's not our narrative.
I think... You know, we're going to a 1984 George Orwell kind of era now. It's disturbing, you know, when people are getting arrested on what they say on Twitter or on Facebook.
Tell us a bit, Sunil, about what the Global Conservative Coalition is.
Yeah, sure. So it's essentially trying to get conservative-minded parties across the world together to have more open dialogue. So I've done a lot of stuff with, like, Conservative Party of Canada and Liberal Party of Australia, which is the effective conservative centre-right group. Interesting enough, I think what's happening in Canada is a really wake-up call for conservatism in this country. So Canada had Stephen Harper as their Prime Minister, very successful, lasted a very long time. His premiership came to an end. Justin Trudeau came into power, and the Conservative Party in the preceding years was in absolute chaos. They infighting non-stop, didn't seem to come to an end. It's only now in the last few years they've got a really well-spoken person who's fighting against, if you like, the woke war. He's been done it from very from the start. He's really been able to unite the centre-right, the right together.
Will that happen here then with the Conservative Party, do you think?
It's hard to see how that's going to happen now. I mean, with Reform, I would love to see the Reform and Conservative Party together. I think you need to unite the right. I know it's an easy
do you think... I'm sort of... When people say, oh, yes, you're a far-right extremist or whatever, which I find fairly offensive. I'm not.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if I was in power today, I think I would be renationalising the railways, the water and the electricity.
Well, that's
and
left
gas.
wing then.
You know,
you're far
left. No, because I think they're things we all need. I think there are certain things you shouldn't be trying to make money out of because we can see it hasn't worked. But also, I believe that everybody should benefit from what they can achieve themselves. The way things are going now, we've only had a socialist government for 5 weeks, and already they're going to have a go at the pensioners, are going to take that, and it's not going to make them any money, or hardly any money, so I don't really know. You know, people who are wealthy and still get that payment, that'll go off in tax anyway, so it doesn't really matter. And they're trying to hide the fact that there's this huge amount of money being wasted on looking after all the people who come here illegally, because at the moment, that's what the majority of people in this country see, and nobody is taking any notice of them. That's dangerous.
So it's not even being talked about now.
I think the problem with like far right now is, or being right wing, it's a lot of the stuff that you've mentioned and I've seen you guys mention regularly on your shows. It's not right or left wing. It's basic common sense.
Yeah, exactly.
There's 2 genders. Family is important.
Yeah.
You know, it makes sense to hold British values. It's better people come through the system legally, not illegally. These are just basic common sense. 10 years ago, that's not political. That's not right or left. You speak to an average Labour person, an average Tory, they'll say the same thing.
But they hate that now.
But now that's far right. Now that's an extreme way of thinking, and I think that's so dangerous, because then how can you have open discussions about the things you've just said in terms of nationalising things, having these deep level economic chats? You can't, because you're put into a box, and then it's impossible to get out of the box.
See it with immigration, you're far right if you just want to talk about it.
But I think, you know, I think a lot of the people who it's really interesting, a lot of people who voted Reform, a lot of them were previous Labour voters.
Interesting.
And I think a lot of immigration has taken over.
Stay on that for a moment.
Red wall.
If you look at the amount of people who voted for each party in the last election, this government, who got a massive majority, still only got about 20% of the population voting for them. How can that be democratic?
1 in 5 of the electorate.
Crazy. I mean, it's you combine Reform and Conservative votes together, they would have won the election. Yeah. But I think what it shows in that election more than anything is people voted against the Conservative Party, and I think Labour did not win that election.
No.
The Tories absolutely destroyed.
Do we need to reform the system, the voting system?
It's really hard, because naturally, you know, I want to see Conservatives in power, so it's easy to sit here and now say they lost, so I want now reform the system. Had they won, would I be saying the same thing?
Proportional representation doesn't really work.
I would like a much more accurate system. It's really hard
Reform
to say.
got 500,000 votes more than the Lib Dems. And Lib Dems got 70-odd seats, so they got 5.
I think that's a good example of, I think they're not representative. And I think Lib Dems is a really good, another good example of, I think if you actually go to Lib Dem areas, a lot of them are just Labour voters.
How far do you think Keir Starmer can get with the narrative that, you know, those people who are spreading terrible things and being awful, right-wing, you know, some of the things we could have said today, Ofcom could come back and say, well, I'm sorry, but you shouldn't have gone down that road, you shouldn't have said that. I'm too old to bother about Ofcom at the moment, because as far as I'm concerned, in my 70s, they're all children. But it is, they have power. The government have power. They can tell any of these off organisations
to
off. And so that cuts down freedom of speech. And that is a real worry.
We didn't win 2 world wars fighting democracy, fighting for our civil liberties for this now to happen. It is, you know, and I would say this to lefties or people who are supporting Labour Party is, today it's Labour and power, today it's the policies and the things that you like. What happens tomorrow when it's not? What happens when you say something that is rational, or you think is rational, makes common sense, and the party that you don't like weaponize the law system against you?
That's what they're doing now. People are already scared to say things.
They're doing that now, and I think I would urge the people who even agree with a lot of the Labour stuff that's going on, if this was a Conservative Party saying things that I agreed with, and they were saying that if you say something different, we're going to weaponize it against you, we're going to imprison you, we're going to fine you. That is incredibly totalitarian. We did not win wars for this.
You're
I think
absolutely
it's a social credit system that they're going to bring in.
I think it seems like it's a step towards the Chinese
salami slice.
I mean, the other thing is as well that we are broke. And I'm not blaming all the politicians for that, because we have the pandemic and the war in Ukraine and various other things going on in the world at the moment. Not a good time to be a politician, but we're broke. And so they've got to bring in some kind of tax rises. I cannot understand why they pick on the pensioners, but that was a pretty stupid thing to do.
Because they don't vote for them.
But yet we are giving billions of pounds away to other countries.
Yeah.
And we haven't got that money, so we're borrowing it
to
give it away. Yeah. And then people come into this country every day illegally, and we house them in a hotel, or we do, and now they're going to not do that anymore, put them in houses. There are so many people who've lived here for years, born here, who can't get a house.
Freeze to death, tens of thousands of excess deaths in the winter.
Do they not understand this?
I think they're just so out of touch with reality. I think when you look at BBC, Sky and all these media outlets, you look at the Labour Party, for me it's just, they are London. They represent London. Yeah. They represent a group of people who are who have moderate to high wealth, and so these issues are not big issues. But if you're
they also don't care. They dislike the working class. They hate them.
For sure. They don't seem to respect them. They don't seem to have any sort of decency or care towards them. And that's why there's so much frustration. That's why they didn't really increase their vote share. That's the reason why Jeremy Corbyn had similar vote share to Sir Keir Starmer, is because they're not actually gaining any support. People are so frustrated, and you could argue rightly so with how many leaders of the Conservative Party. But
we've just had a call from Baz, who left this message. Have a listen to this.
Hi James, hi Ash, it's Barry in Norwich. Yeah, I just want to say, Keir Starmer, until he actually acknowledges illegal immigration and immigration, then perhaps we'd be able to start talking about it.
Thank you, Baz. It's a good point. No, this is how people feel. I'm looking and ask them to shove somebody to the front of the queue, I shouldn't say this, who actually totally disagrees. If we can get one within the next 5 minutes, probably won't. Somebody who totally disagrees. And there must be people out there, when you see the marches of refugees are welcome here, free Palestine, and all the aggravation that they are causing. I actually think if there hadn't been these sort of hate marches going on, that we probably would have seen the situation in Gaza sorted out by now. But I think it gives the terrorists a little bit of hope to see these things going on around the world.
I think it's so many people will talk about these things ill-informed. They see a social media meme, they'll see something, and it's like, I post about it, I talk about it, look at me, I'm a good person. And I think the best thing you can do is get a job, work hard, try to have a family one day and try to grow. That's the best thing you do. But I think a lot of people, and fortunately maybe it's more my generation, who seem more obsessed with trying to look good rather than just do good. And right now, looking good is posting Free Palestine, it's going on these marches, and that's all it is. And it gives them that sort of sense of purpose, and you're not changing the world, you're doing nothing.
They're useful idiots, actually.
Yeah, you're doing nothing. Go home, get a job, work hard, produce for this economy, pay your taxes, be a good father, wife, husband, mother, do these things. But
that's not fashionable at the moment.
That's far right.
And yeah, exactly.
That's far right.
Now, I'm so old that I used to interview Margaret Thatcher from time to time when she was here. She was a brilliant politician, and she actually believed in something, and she did things. Not saying that they were all right. Nobody does
conviction
things all
politics,
right.
You don't get them.
But the people who are going into politics now seem not to have any idea.
Well, it's a career from university, they haven't lived life.
I mean, there's a lack of principles and values. I love, regardless of which side it is, when you have deep principles and values.
Why don't you become a politician?
I don't.
See, young
I want a
people
career.
like you would be good.
What do you do as a career?
So I work in finance, and the thing with politics is, I've got a bit of an unpopular opinion with this. I think there should be less. There should be less than them. They should be paid more. The problem is, it's a 4-year job. If it's 4 years, depending if they do snap elections, you lose the election, you lose your job. What happens after that? So I think there's 3 types of politicians. You either, this is my preferred one, you have had a really good career, you've made your money, you've been successful, like a Sajid Javid in some ways, a successful career.
Yeah.
Now I can be a politician. Then you have come from wealth, so you have a really good
David
background.
Cameron,
Boris Johnson's, where you can go lose elections, it's okay. You can go back to mum and dad who will put you up in a nice house, it's okay. And so I don't think it really fits a young character.
Do you know what I think that nobody who hasn't had life experience should become a politician. I agree with what you say about losing your job, and I agree with what you're saying about there are too many politicians. Let's cut the political areas back. But let's also, like in America in many ways, let's say that you can only serve 2 terms and then you have to go. So that you have to do it out of conviction rather than
100%.
It's a career.
We would have lost a Thatcher one. She went for 3 terms. You wouldn't. Are you happy with that? She wouldn't have got a 3rd term, Thatcher.
Her 3rd term was not her best.
I think it makes more sense because I think the problem is what happens is I think it's really tough in the fairness of politicians now is because of social media. The difference is Thatcher. I think you have to be an extremely strong character. What Thatcher was able to do is do deeply unpopular stuff that was in for the good name of the country. Now it's really hard because the difference is you've got every day a poll telling you what you just said, how popular it is or not. I don't think enough have conviction in what they're saying and doing.
Done by computer and focus group.
Yeah, to sit there and say, you know what, 80% disagree with what I've just said, but you know what, I believe in it. And I'm going to stand by it. I think every day you see that every single day your fellow MPs, your Prime Minister, your leader says this to you. Do you have the courage and the character?
But isn't Starmer doing that? Because he's seen most of the population don't want what he's doing and he's going against it.
But I don't think he has. I think he sees his little bubble. I think he sees social media. I think he sees London and he thinks this is the normal thing. And I think that's what Sadiq Khan does. And it works for him. And I think Sakir's doing the same thing. It helps that there's no opposition, if we're being honest. The opposition's Elon Musk. There's no one else. So I think he's kind of getting
away. Well, shouldn't Sunak be saying something? There's no opposition, like you say. He is the leader of the opposition. He's in America, I think.
But again, you're a departing leader. Like, what impetus do you really have? I
think Nigel Farage has said more than anybody else that has actually rung true with people. But I think the other problem we have at the moment is that I was on the air during the miners' strike, and that was just like what has gone on the last week or so here, but it went on a lot longer.
So I would ask you a question back. Do you think with the miners' strike, our politicians would have carried on, as in not caved in today?
I think our politicians today would have caved in. I seriously remember the poll tax riots.
Thatcher was determined, wasn't she?
The poll tax riots actually did achieve,
and that was Thatcher again, actually.
But they didn't. But they didn't actually get rid of the poll tax. Just called it a different.
Well,
name.
no, they did because he didn't have to pay. You know, one person. But who should be the next Tory leader?
To pay.
Oh, it's tough. Like I like Kemi Badenoch. I think she's a fresh of breath air.
A fresh of breath air?
Yeah, I think she's different. Like she's, from everything she said. I think
James Cleverly is a good bloke who actually.
I think he's
because he's his mate a bit.
I think he's he's a really nice person. I think he's
Tom Tugendhat.
They'll bring the people together.
Generic.
I think the reality is the next leader is going to be somebody who's going to have to grow into the role. There's no one there I sit there and think straight away, yes, I want this.
Should it be an Asian person, maybe?
It should be on merit. It should be on merit. It should be on merit.
You can say things when you...
Can you hear the music in your ear?
Yeah, we've still got 40 seconds.
Oh, carry on then. You can...
But you can say things like Braverman could say that multiculturalism hasn't worked and not get called a racist if a white person does that.
Well, for sure, because I think if you're a white person, your vocabulary is a lot less than it is for anyone else. And I think that's a concern. So... I think the next leader will have to grow into the role.
Thanks, Sunil. Thanks for coming in, man. It was great, yeah. Thank you. Oh, it's the Ash Show featuring James Wells. But it's all about your calls after this. 03444991000. Keep sending us the WhatsApp voice messages on the answer machine. Remember, keep the pressing play.